Houston traveling to Indy and picking up the win 29-27. This was just a damn good football game, man. I mean, it wasn't perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say it's perfect, but it was a division matchup to start the season with both teams going big.
These two teams always play games like this, no matter what players are on the field.
So much fun to watch. And again, like, it wasn't a perfect game from C.J. Stroud. It wasn't a perfect game from Anthony Richardson, but you had the wow moments. You had good things on both sides of the ball. It was a lot of fun. Let's start out with the Houston Texans, who got the win, and look at their top 5 players. Wide receiver Nico Collins, who is coming off an incredible season that he had last year. 82.7. He was the highest graded Houston Texan in this past game. And there he is, the aforementioned Kalen Bullock, number 2 on this list. 82.3. The rookie got himself an interception this past week. Linebacker Henry To'o as a 78.2 at number 3 overall right there. Joe Mixon coming in at number 4. I know it says 5 and 4. I think that's actually my bad. I think I typed that incorrectly on Google Sheets. So don't blame the production crew. Blame me. Got Joe Mixon. Great debut here for the Houston Texans. 73.1 overall grade. Ton of stats in this one as well. Tight end Brevin Jordan, 71.8. And I mentioned C.J. Stroud didn't have the best day, but still, 67.9. He did some things well. He did some things that he'd like to clean up, but it was a solid game. Let's flip over to the Indianapolis Colts on the other side, and man, you remember a couple of years ago when we were talking about the Colts offensive line and we're like, man, they gotta totally throw this thing away. They gotta totally restart everything. We don't know what happened. Over the last 2 years, this has once again been a fantastic unit, and this game they came out and made a statement. 3 of their top 5 graded players all along the offensive line, with both of their guards here at the very top. Will Fry's a 93.0 grade. Quentin Nelson at number 2 getting a 90.7 grade. 2 elite grades there. Alec Pierce on the receiving end of some Anthony Richardson bombs at number 3 here at an 85.4 overall grade. Go back to the trenches for Bernard Ryman as an 82.8 at number 4. And then in the defensive side of things, Kenny Moore, their slot defender, 80.3. Anthony Richardson getting a 76.2 overall grade in this one. What is your stat that told the story here, Dalton?
I want to stay on Richardson because we, as a passer, we got the full Anthony Richardson experience. The 114 yards and 2 touchdowns on those 2 big-time throws. One of the great throws that we're going to see this season on the first one. Just a 65, 70-yard bomb falling away. I think Josh Allen's he might be the only other guy in football that could make that throw that he made.
Joe Milton does exist.
Joe Milton exists.
You do need to throw Joe Milton in there.
He does.
You're required by law.
I got to see it in game action. I mean,
I don't.
You don't think so?
He threw it 100 yards in practice.
All right, fine. Josh Allen and Joe Milton and Anthony Richardson, the 3 biggest freak arms in football. But and the other ball was just a laser. The second touchdown too over the middle. But the rest of his passes. Here's the rest of his line without those 2 throws in. 7 for 17. 98 yards, an interception, and a 51.3 passing grade otherwise. Okay, if you take out those 2. And it's exactly what we get out of Anthony Richardson. You see amazing, amazing stuff. Game-changing stuff. That first throw that's not supposed to be possible, right? He can do things that are impossible. But I need him to do things more consistently, the things that are possible, the normal things, right? You can't, you're not going to, those are high variance things. You can't chuck it 70 yards every play, right? So 7 for his other 17. Can you? I mean, he could if they get a step open 70 yards downfield every play, he probably could. But I mean, and there's certain colleges that get like that too, honestly. But no, Richardson, we got everything that we know Anthony Richardson is. A home run hitter. A guy who can just absolutely wow you with plays that make almost no sense. And then the inconsistency as a passer that you go, man, if I could just fill in the gaps here. If I could fill in the gaps here, this is the elite player. This is the dark horse MVP candidate that everybody wants. This is the fantasy god that I think is probably they're getting anyway with all the rushing and all of that. But honestly, that's going to be the story of the Colts season, is that right there, is Anthony Richardson on the non-highlight plays getting more consistent and going better than 7 of 17 and being a more consistent force, because it's an offense built for him to succeed under Shane Steichen.
I mean, I've loved the connection since we saw the beginning of it with Richardson and Steichen. So that's something that I'm continuing to watch and evolve, and we're going to see some fantastic plays as long as he is healthy. I have no doubt about that. A stat that told the story for me is sort of like an interesting one, and it's sort of kind of like a shout out to like what PFF is. C.J. Stroud had 3 turnover-worthy plays in this game. only one of them became an interception. And I genuinely think, I see some people in the chat who were like, hey, the Colts should have won this game. And I think the Colts could have very well won this game because it was tight. It was tough all the way around from the first kick to the last. And that, I think, just made the difference. Is Stroud had 3 plays where he put the ball in harm's way. Now, I think he did throw an interception on the last turnover-worthy play, and I believe it was a flag that just took it away. So it was a flag that was part of why it was an interception. So that one you sort of take with a grain of salt, but even the other one could have made all the difference in the world if it was a turnover-worthy throw that ended up being a turnover. And so that is sort of a PFF way to look at this game. Is it was a 2-point game at the very end. This was close. This is a very close contest. But to throw, I'll even just say 2 turnover-worthy plays if you want to take away the one with the flag, and only have one of them, you only paid for it once. That sort of made all the difference in the world in this game.
Better to be lucky than good sometimes.
Sometimes it is. So I think that is the stat that told the story there for me. Most impressive and most disappointing. Who do you have in this?
Most impressive, Nico Collins. And he was the best player on the
stud.
He was the best player on the field in Week 18 when they played last year for the division title. He was the best player on the field in this game. 6 catches, 117 yards, and 84.9 receiving grade. And you know, everybody was talking about what kind of roles. We have all these weapons in Houston. What kind of roles are they going to? Well, they're very clear cut. Stephon Diggs is a movable piece as a Z who's going to motion and do all the complicated things he did in Buffalo. Tank Dell is a primary slot guy, and Nico Collins is that big, singled up X receiver that's going to win the battle. And on 5 of those 6 catches, Trevor, from what I saw, he was the guy isolated on the backside by himself. And why is that so important against the Colts? The Colts are really good in the slot with Kenny Moore, right? They're pretty good at safety. But at outside corner, that's the weak spot for the Colts. And if you have a guy you can put out there on the backside, let's say you have Trips on one side and Nico by himself, that's where Stroud was going with the football. So if you have that guy, well, they have multiple guys who can win one-on-one. But if you have a guy like Collins who you can isolate to one side of the field and just have succeed over and over and over without even having to scheme, just go, okay, he's over here by himself. Nico, run a slant. We got you. It's a wrap. We know you're going to win. CJ's going to put the ball on the spot. His role in this game specifically against this team made him the most impressive and most valuable player, just like it did in Week 18 last year. And then most disappointing, actually, is the Texans' defensive line. You mentioned the Colts' offensive line. You know, you bring in Danielle Hunter. You've got Will Anderson developing. You got some interior guys you brought in too. And they lost the battle in this first one. Despite winning the game, the Texans' D-line has a lot of work to do. 38.1 overall grade as a group, 29.5 run defense grade, and just 7 pressures among their defensive line. I believe Danielle Hunter was the only player with multiple pressures, and I want to say he had 2 or maybe 3. But either way, as a unit, they're going to have to play a lot better than that. I know the Colts' offensive line is really, really good, but this pass rush led by Anderson and Hunter has to be better.
Yeah, obviously if one defensive line is not going to play well, the transition to my most impressive was that Colts offensive line. Again, we've talked before 2 years ago is this offensive line cooked? Are they going to have to make a lot of changes? And I just think that they bounced back in an incredible way, especially to start out this 2024 season. No Colts offensive lineman had an overall blocking grade below 70. Just playing so well as a unit. Obviously, we mentioned Fries and Nelson both had grades above 90 in blocking, so that was really impressive. Most disappointing is that Anthony Richardson to A.D. Mitchell connection. I'm not going to say that A.D. Mitchell was the most disappointing, even though when you look at his stats, he had just 1 catch for 2 yards on 5 targets. I'm not going to say that he was the most disappointing because when you actually watch the film, he's open. And there are even a couple of times when Richardson throws it his way of those 5 targets where the ball is just out of reach. They're still getting that chemistry together. The connection was disappointing to me because, again, you hit on even one of those extra throws from A.D. Mitchell, it could have meant all the difference in the world for the Indianapolis Colts. So I think people see the potential of this offense, and so do I. When you look at how A.D. Mitchell was emphasized, wide receiver usage or threat percentage on 19 receiving snaps, 31.6%. When this dude was on the field running routes, they were going after him because they know that he's a stud. They know he can win in that regard. So I'm looking forward to that connection being better. And if it was just a little bit better out of the gate, Colts might have won this game. The chat pointed this out. Stroud actually did not have an interception. I forgot that was one of the interception that was thrown back. So he did not have an interception in this game. But he still had more turnover-worthy plays that he did not pay for, which obviously makes the point still stand that, man, if one of those turnover-worthy plays would have gone the other way for the Colts, again, maybe the score is a little bit different, but I cannot wait to watch these teams face off again. It's one of the best young teams, trending teams, I should say, in the NFL.